Welcome to the chapter on classical music. Now we're in the classical era, roughly 1750 to 1825. Some books will say 1800, I say 1825. A lot of people agree with me. The first thing we need to talk about here is this controversy of classical music versus the classical era. Got to get this straight in your mind. The classical era was a specific time period, as I just mentioned. Classical music is music from any time period that has certain characteristics. It's serious music. It's music to be played in a concert for a serious audience that is going to listen and hopefully clap at the end and perhaps stand up and clap at the end. It's music that is designed to have lasting value and has, in tradition, has had lasting value. It's music that is written and performed to expand the concepts of the human ideal and the human experience. All that lumped together is classical music. That could be from any era, it could be from any country, it could be from any culture that has those particular specifics. So that is what we call classical music, as opposed to pop music or popular music of today. Now, an argument could be made, well, there's a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, Ohio. I've been there several times. I got you. It is going to be there for a long time. Does that meet all the criteria that I just mentioned? Last time I've been to a rock concert, which was a while ago, I wasn't sitting down. Okay, so there are some things that are different. So we can't call it classical music because there are certain purposes that it has, and certainly rock music is not designed to expand the human ideal or reach the highest levels of human creativity and development. The classical music is all about symmetry. It's all about a reaction to the late Baroque, where things just were very overblown with the characteristics of Baroque music that you've studied and understood. By the end of Bach's life, he really fell out of favor. It was not, polyphony really fell out of favor to a more structured form. And if we look at the architecture of that time period, of course, in our book here, we've got these photos in the book, which are great photos. The Parthenon in the University of Virginia, which looks a bit like Jefferson's Monticello. Symmetry, you cut it in half and it's the same on either side in form and a reserved expression, I guess is the great way to say it. How does it translate into the music? Well, in the music, the sections that we are trying to identify when it comes to listening become, for you, the layperson or the beginner of really listening to music, clearly and structured, becomes very easy to understand. The beginning and endings of those sections become very clear to understand. In fact, some of the composers actually write the letters GP in the music, which stands for grand pause. In other words, at the end of that moment, we're just going to let the audience sit and think about it, and then we'll come in and we'll finish the tune, we'll finish the piece of music. So there are clear-cut sections. The sonata allegro form, which is really described in detail in chapter 11. I won't go into detail, but there are in different eras of music, we have different kinds of sonatas. And so I know that it can be a bit confusing. When we're talking about the classical sonata, it is a very clear form, three-section form, where we have the exposition, the development, and the recapitulation. And the exposition and the recapitulation each have the theme of the sonata, which is usually demonstrated right in the very beginning. It's just a musical thought, a sentence, or a phrase, or a group of sentences that work together, and that's developed in the development, changes key halfway through. A lot of things you don't need to know, but the different motives do happen. There, the modulations you are going to have to hear a little bit, and I'll do some listening to help out with that. Other forms that are going to happen in a symphony. Okay, so the orchestras were developed in such a way, which I'll talk about with the Mannheim Orchestra in just a few moments, and then the symphony was developed, and we'll talk about that later on. But essentially, the symphony developed into a four-movement work, which was designed to all happen at the same time in a concert. And the forms for those four movements are pretty well spelled out here on page 118, where the first movement is fast, and it is in sonata allegro form, exposition, development, recapitulation. Second movement would be slower in its form. Maybe a sonata. It may also be theme and variation, which is something that starts out with a theme. I'll just give you a rough idea, like an interesting theme, such as so that would be a theme, and then a variation on that would be
Are you recording?
I am.